Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. I am Money Mike, and this is a new Front 7 podcast, special pre-game Wednesday morning edition, as we have a very rare, in fact, you have to go back to 2012 when we last had a Wednesday game in the NFL, as after delaying this as much as possible, the NFL was desperately trying to avoid a Week 18 situation. It seems as if we're finally going to get the Ravens and Steelers that was supposed to have taken place last Thursday on Thanksgiving. Now, um, we're going to get into a little bit of just various news around the league in this show and just talk about different things that's going on. Obviously, I think the first thing here is that on Tuesday, first off, not only did the Ravens not have any new positives, but also around the league, there was no positives whatsoever. So, that is a very, very good sign. Very good thing that there was no new positive tests among Ravens, Steelers, the rest of the league. And it seems as if 3:40 today we are going to be getting that game. I will change into my Lamar Jackson or Justin Tucker jersey probably later on, before the game. But I wanted to get this out here before the game today. So while we're on the subject of COVID, I do want to kind of go and talk about the Broncos and the Saints, because I think right now we're in a league, a new NFL that thrives on quarterback play, thrives on good quarterback play. So when a team loses a starting quarterback, yeah, it's kind of bad, right? Mahomes went down last year with an injury. I think that was just before the game with the Packers, and so he missed out on Mahomes versus Rodgers last year because of that. And obviously, the Packers didn't make the Super Bowl, so we didn't get that in the Super Bowl either. You go back to 2011 when Peyton Manning had his neck surgery, and the Colts were just plain awful that year. With Curtis Painter, if anybody remembers that name, trust me, he helped pretty much tank the Colts for Andrew Luck. But basically, when the starters go down, the the quarterback play takes a hit, right? So we've seen this here plenty of times, plenty of situations. Aaron Rodgers was lost for the season a couple years ago. The quarterback play in Green Bay was not where it was with Aaron Rodgers. So now let's fast forward to what we saw on Sunday. Now, obviously, Drew Brees is hurt, and he's dealing with some like ribs injury, like puncture lung things, something like that. So he's out for a couple games. Now they did sign Jameis Winston, but it's interesting that they went with Taysom Hill. And again, now Taysom Hill is kind of a similar quarterback as Lamar. There was one guy that said that Taysom Hill is just as good as Lamar, and you know, so it's kind of like one of those things where we kind of expect the Saints to be kind of in a wildcat formation, type of deal. We know what we expect with Taysom Hill. So for Denver, they had no quarterbacks available. Other quarterbacks um, had to be in quarantine because of some positives, and Next thing you know, Denver has no quarterback for this game against the Saints. And obviously that speaks to the volumes that teams should probably keep a quarterback away from the rest of the team. So in this situation, they still have a quarterback, and they don't have to rely on a wide receiver who hasn't played quarterback in a couple years to, well, play quarterback within 24 hours. So basically, Kendall Hinton ended up becoming this overnight sensation. Everybody's trying to figure out who he was. He was an undrafted prospect out of the 2020 draft, and we didn't know what to expect. And essentially, Denver kind of, I think give and take, if they had Drew Lock, I think they probably would have won the game. I think, Sean Payton came out and was like, hey, we changed the playbook because of the situation. Like, that's weird. Then you would change your offensive playbook just because of the other team. But, I mean, it's a question for Sean Payton to answer. But, nonetheless, they didn't have a quarterback. They had to rely on a receiver to play quarterback for them. And really, truthfully, the NFL should be embarrassed. Like I said, this is a league that thrives on good quarterback play. They've changed the rules now where it benefits quarterbacks. You can't hit a quarterback without 100 flags being thrown. All right, don't get me started on the stupid roughing the pass roughing the passer. When a defender is trying to play the ball, try to knock it out of the quarterback's hands, and they end up coming down hitting the helmet of a quarterback. I mean, that shouldn't even be a flag at all, because the NFL doesn't understand how gravity works, apparently. But obviously, the league has changed the rules now to where quarterback play is a very, very big part to a team's success. And so, for the fact that the NFL allowed this game to kind of go on the way it did, I think they should be embarrassed. Because if you're going to go around, change the rules, throw flags every time a quarterback gets hit, gets breathed on, and then you're going to say, hey, you can't, on your quarterbacks, you have to play without a quarterback, even though the NFL did everything they could and delayed this Ravens-Steelers game that is finally being played this afternoon. Like, you couldn't have delayed the Broncos-Saints game. Like, I don't know if the Broncos would have had Drew Lock back by, or even Brett Rypien, like, if they would have had them back by yesterday, to be able to play on Monday before the Seahawks-Eagles game. But maybe you could have even played the game today. Just delayed it. So we're playing this game on Tuesday. So that way you don't have a situation like that. Because to me, this is all kinds of embarrassment for the league. Like, this really shows you kind of like how unprepared the league was. I explained this in my last video, which I'm not really sure how or why the quality of that video was so bad. Hopefully this video doesn't do the same thing. Maybe I did something wrong in Premiere, I don't know, but I explained, the NFL had so much time. They watched the NBA, they watched NASCAR, MLB, all these other sports come back. And essentially, they had all this time to prepare for situations like this, but they didn't really do it. They should have installed a second bye week. They should have been more prepared in these situations where, like I said, I mean, even if they would have delayed the season by a couple weeks, that would have been fine. Like, I was watching ESPN, Stephen A said even if they, was talking about shutting down the season for a couple weeks, right? Like, even if they did that, like, okay, fine. I'd be on board with that if it meant getting this under control. But, I mean, just the fact that the Saints-Broncos game happened, the league was just hardball. They were like, hey, this is going to happen no matter what. Then I think that to me was a big mistake. I think the league should have really moved this game to Tuesday. I think it wouldn't have been no problem. We've had Tuesday games before already this year. I don't understand why they couldn't have moved the Broncos Saints to Tuesday. It would have been easier. So hopefully this kind of stays like that and we can kind of start containing it. But I do believe the NFL should go to a playoff bubble come January when we get to the playoffs next month. And we go to a playoff bubble. Like, if you want to play the AFC games, and I said this again in my last video, which I'm just repeating because I know probably not a lot of people watched it because the quality and the video quality ended up getting messed up. But, like, if you were to put the AFC in Jacksonville or NFC in, take two states, like, if you want to keep it close proximity to where Tampa is, if you wanted to put, like, maybe the AFC playoffs in Jacksonville, the NFC playoffs in Miami, or if you want to, or any of the college stadiums, like, whatever the case may be, but we need a playoff bubble for the playoffs next month. That's a given. Now, speaking of the playoffs, we're going to move along and talk about Monday night. Seahawks, Eagles. Obviously, somebody has to win the NFC East. Now, it's unfortunate that one of them is going to probably win this division with 5 or 6 wins, and they're going to host a team that has 10, 11 wins, and we're going to be talking about that debate. Should winning the division guarantee you a home game? But, we're going to be talking about that all off season. And I said this before. When the NFL moved to this 17 format, they should have made it where, yes, divisions still matter. Yes, winning your division gets you into the playoffs, guarantees you a spot in the playoffs, but it doesn't guarantee you a home game. So if you want a home game, you either need to make sure you get that 1 seed, you get that 2 seed, or you at least have a better record than most people than the wild card teams do, right? So the Eagles, they go out, they lose to the Seahawks. So now, while the NFC West is kind of crazy, the 49ers beat the Rams. So now maybe the 49ers might be making a late playoff push here. They may be getting Jimmy Garoppolo, George Kittle back at the end of the year. I mean, if they get into the playoffs, I mean, they find their way in. Who knows what can happen? But the NFC East right now is a cluster. Like, it's a dumpster fire. I mean, there's no way to say this. Like, winning the division to win the NFC East in 2020 is the worst thing that could happen to any of those teams in that division, because all 4 of these teams in that division all need high draft picks to help rebuild their teams. Each of those teams, deservingly so, deserve a high draft pick. 2, they need high draft picks to help build their team, so that they're not crummy, and we don't have this anymore. All right, that's one thing. Secondly, the winner of this division is going to be picking in the, at the very, very least, 19th. All right. So they're going to go from top 5 pick to the 19th pick, and whoever wins this division is going to suffer from that. Now, currently the Giants and Washington right now are tied for the lead, but Daniel Jones is hurt, so the Giants are going to be starting with Colt McCoy, it seems like, this week. So the Giants, who are on this 3-game winning streak, now all of a sudden, now they may not be with Daniel Jones, which may hurt them. As Washington now is kind of right there, they're tied, and so we'll have to see how this all plays out. Again, I think this may cause the NFL to do what I just said they should have done in the first place when they announced a 17 playoff, was to say, hey, winning the division gets you in, but it doesn't guarantee you a home game. Simple as that, right? So since Monday, the Eagles right now, they would be picking 6th in the draft order right now, which is deserving so because the Eagles have so many issues. They need offensive line help so they can get a top talent there in the offensive line to try to help keep Carson Wentz up. But the only question now is Carson Wentz the answer for the Eagles? Because when you see the Eagles in 2017, obviously, you know, and I don't want to get into the whole Nick Foles, Carson Wentz debate, but because I think all the issues that the 2020 Eagles have, not even Nick Foles could get them out of this out of the situation they're in. Now, essentially, Carson Wentz, maybe he is regressing, but at the same time, his offensive line banged up, he's hurt, and he doesn't have the receiving core. I look at Baltimore. You know, a lot of people point out, like to defend Carson Wentz, saying that, hey, well, his offensive line's beat up. Well, he doesn't have the receivers. Okay. So that's the same situation Lamar Jackson's in. Lamar doesn't have the receivers. Lamar's without his offensive tackle. His starting left tackle, Ronnie Stanley. It's the same situation. But the Ravens are more competitive. So, the Eagles, you know, I've seen people say maybe Doug Peterson's a problem. I think, no, I don't even think Doug Peterson's the problem because I think it's the quarterback. Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles at quarterback, right? So, when Carson Wentz was healthy, he had a good offensive line, the receivers were there, everything in 2017, before his injury, he was fine. He was on his way to being the MVP. But, again, I think you have to look at this and go, maybe they both need a fresh start. Or maybe Carson Wentz needs a fresh start somewhere else. Which is going to be the big discussion around Detroit, where Detroit just fired Matt Patricia, Bob Quinn. The Patriot way once again failed. Shocker, who knew? Obviously, you know, you look at that situation where Matthew Stafford, he definitely needs a fresh start. I think it would be good for the Lions to move on from him. But I think Carson Wentz is in that same scenario where I think maybe he just needs a fresh start. I think when you look at this draft next year, I think it would be wise for the Eagles to miss the playoffs. Draft a top 5, top 10 worthy quarterback. You know, I don't think they're going to be there for Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence. Obviously, right now with the Jaguars and the Jets 1 and 2, Right now, Jets and Jaguars have a stranglehold on the top two picks, and they're obviously going to go Lawrence and Fields, in which, whoever they like better, whatever. But I think if the Eagles could get a Trey Lance, bring in somebody that can push Carson, because I think the Eagles will be wise to take advantage of this draft next year at the quarterback situation. I mean, I think they have so many issues from the offensive standpoint, defensive standpoint. I think it would be wise for them to have a top 10 pick, maybe trade back, get some more picks so they can rebuild that team a little bit. But when you are in a division like this, where Carson Wentz is currently the only remaining starting quarterback in this division in the NFC East that started week 1. All right. I mean, look. Daniel Jones was there, yes, but right now he's injured, right? So he may not be there. When you look at Dallas, they lost Dak Prescott. In Washington, Ron Rivera's playing this game of like duck duck goose, where who knows if Dwayne Haskins is going to stay there, is Alex Smith going to stay there next year? Who knows? Will they take a quarterback in the draft? So there's so much more in that division that really, really needs to be talked about. I think, to me, I don't know if maybe the Eagles have out in the contract for Carson Wentz, but maybe they can find a team that could take on the cap. Some people say that Frank Reich, he was the key to the Super Bowl in 2017. So when Frank Reich left to go to Indianapolis, maybe some of that magic left. Now, maybe the Colts, who don't have a quarterback under contract beyond this year, maybe you make that call to Philly. You say, look, I don't think they're going to get a first-round pick for him, but obviously maybe a second or a third. With Carson Wentz in the decline that he's in, I think maybe you get a second or a third-round pick for him. I think, and then you put him in Indianapolis, reunite him with Frank Reich, and then Indy, who has a better offensive line. They need to get some weapons, but I think Carson Wentz just needs a fresh start. And I think reuniting him with Frank Reich in Indianapolis would be actually a very good idea for the Colts to consider. But we'll have to see how this all plays out the rest of the year, because, granted, that whole division right now is like one win or one loss away from either a top 5 pick or a mid-round pick. So it's absolutely crazy how terrible that division is. So, as I said, just talking about it, Matt Patricia got fired. So the Lions, what should they do with Matthew Stafford? I believe it's time for a fresh start. Listen, Stafford, if he stays there in Detroit, he's going to end up like Calvin Johnson, like Barry Sanders, and just be a waste of talent. I think, and also, Matthew Stafford's been in the league for 10 years. 10, 11, 12 years at this point. They haven't won nothing with him. So at this point, I think Detroit right now needs to look at a full-on rebuild with whoever they bring in. Go get yourself a new quarterback to help build the team around. I think, to me right now, Detroit just needs to clean everything out. Start fresh in 2021. I think Stafford needs to go to a place where he can win a ring. I think Stafford is one of the most talented quarterbacks in this league, but he's been kind of handcuffed in Detroit. And Matthew Stafford's contract is up in 2023. So in 2021, 21, 22, 23. So that's 3 more years out of Stafford, right? Or do you keep him around, but you say you draft a quarterback next year, then you can groom behind him in a similar way that Mahomes sat for a year behind Alex Smith before he took over. When you look at Detroit, I think Detroit is one of those teams that's going to be a wild card in the draft. I think from an off-season standpoint, free agency, they have like no receivers on that team next year under contract. Like they have 5 receivers under contract or not under contract that are going to be free agents. Obviously, I think Kenny Golladay probably will get the franchise tag, probably most likely. But then you need to go out and get a couple other receivers. I don't think they'll have the cap unless they trade Stafford. I know there's a lot of dead money there, which probably would prevent them from doing so, but they're going to need some receivers. And I think at the same time, they have Jarrad Davis, their linebacker, that is going to be out. That's going to be a free agent. So they can go linebacker. So you're talking like Micah Parsons out of Penn State, Dylan Moses out of Alabama. Perhaps maybe you go receiver. Devontae Smith out of Alabama, Jalen Swaddle. Detroit is going to be the true wild card based on who they hire, because that team has so many needs that you really, really don't know what they're going to do. And I think, if they can trade Matthew Stafford and add some more picks, and I think they can get a first. I think Matthew Stafford is still playing very well. I think he could play well for a contending team. And I think, to me, you can get a first-round pick for him. I think you can get a mid to late rounder. Get a second first-round pick in next year's draft for Stafford. You could probably get more than that. So we'll have to see what happens with Detroit and who they hire. But at the very, very least, Lions fans can now be thankful that Matt Patricia is no longer their head coach in Detroit. Now, maybe the state of Michigan will get another big early Christmas present, and Jim Harbaugh might be fired from Michigan, which was his dream job, and which obviously has been a nightmare for Jim Harbaugh there at the University of Michigan. And I don't know, maybe Jim Harbaugh comes and be the new head coach of Detroit. And then he tries to get himself banned from the state of Michigan for being bad at coaching Michigan teams. I don't know. But it's amazing to me that Adam Gase has outlasted Bill O'Brien, Dan Quinn, now Matt Patricia. Am I missing anybody else? I don't think any other coaches have been fired. No. But the fact that Adam Gase is still in New York, still the Jets head coach, is quite amazing. And I think right now we're figuring out that Sam Darnold might be the problem. Joe Flacco has very good success, and as a Ravens fan, that makes me happy for Joe. To see Joe Flacco have success. Hopefully one day he comes back and he'll sign a one-day deal, contract with the Ravens to retire as a Raven. But I'm happy to see Joe Flacco succeed, and he succeeded very well. But then when Sam Darnold came back, obviously something a little bit different going on, right? So maybe Adam Gase just needs a better quarterback. Maybe he needs a Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields. But then again, Ryan Tannehill with Adam Gase versus without Adam Gase. So there's that whole debate, and I think the Jets know. I think the Jets they don't want to lose out on Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields. So, they don't want to fire Adam Gase, the interim head coach, which I believe would be Greg Williams, go in there, win some games late, and then cost them Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields. So you kind of look at Atlanta, where Raheem Morris is doing a fantastic job right now as interim head coach. I think he's earned the right to get to be the permanent head coach in Atlanta. You kind of see the difference with Dan Quinn now being gone. So I think the job that Raheem Morris has done in Atlanta has been fantastic. Even though I think Atlanta is one of those teams that could have benefited from having a top 5, top 10 pick in the sense of starting over. Obviously, Matt Ryan's contract doesn't allow them to pick a quarterback, but you could at least build the rest of the team, and especially that defense with some high draft picks, especially when you look at this draft next year. Some very good, talented defensive prospects coming out, and I think Atlanta could use some help in that secondary. I think a Caleb Farley or a Patrick Surtain could have helped. Obviously, they need edge rushing help with when you look at Kwity Paye out of Michigan, Gregory Rousseau out of Miami. So they could have used that top 5, top 10 pick there. But Atlanta's been on a roll, and with that 7th seed, could Atlanta make a run? So we'll have to see what happens here. But, we're in the last month of the season. Let's hope and pray that, going forward, that there's no more positives, no more COVID issues. Let's get through the rest of the regular season. Let's hopefully have a playoff bubble so we can get to the playoffs, get to the Super Bowl, and then hopefully by next year we'll have a full stadium of fans in every stadium. And that's if we go by what Dr. Fauci said earlier this week. He said that we could have full fans of stadiums in for the 2021 season. So, with that being said, I've been your host, Money Mike. This has been the Front 7 podcast, and make sure you subscribe for more of the Front 7, as I will be back later this week as I will recap the Ravens Steelers and talk more about this week's games coming up here in Week 13. So, if you like the video, subscribe for more of the Front 7. And I guess all I can say is, well, we've been waiting all week for Ravens Steelers, and we're finally going to get it. Enjoy the game, everybody.